few cars get to legendary status. Even fewer get to keep it for 4 decades. So today, we're ranking every single generation of BMW M3. Why? Because it's one of my favorite cars. And after buying an E30 M3, I have reached peak BMW loser. Because I have now owned every BMW M3 ever made. Except this one, but So today, I'm gonna explain to you why the M3 is so iconic, how it's changed throughout the generations, what the driving experience is like, and which one is most worth it at its current price point. Spoiler alert, this is my favorite generation M3, but it doesn't mean it's gonna win according to the points. And for the first time ever this holiday season, I'm giving it to one of you guys. Every dollar you spend on driverserror.com gets you a chance to win. And this weekend only, we're doing 5x entries on every dollar you spend on driverserror.com. We've got a ton of new product in the store, and we spent a lot of time dialing in this car in the shop and testing it on track. It is perfectly set up to be your track car or daily driver. And if you wanna know why this car rules so much, stick around for the rest of the episode. The last day for entries is December 17th, and then I'm gonna be announcing it on Christmas morning. So make sure to grab some stuff, and good luck. You know, you can argue that the M3 is not a cool car or that you don't like it, but the hard fact is that you'd be wrong, because the M3 was actually born because of racing. It's what's known as a homologation car. Simply put, if you wanted to compete in a certain race series, the OEM had to make a car available to the public before they could compete. This rules. There are a lot of cool cars out there, most of which were made to fill a segment. But homologation cars are selfish. They're cars that are made specifically to go racing. And newsflash, going racing is already tremendously expensive. Then add on having to make an entire car that you have to sell before you could go racing. That's dedication. The M3 was created in 1986, and it has been a legend ever since, with some really high highs and some really low lows. And being that I am such an M3 fanboy, I'm super excited that I actually get to drive every single generation of M3 in a single day. And then I get to share it with you guys and figure out how these actually do rank. So without further ado, let's jump into it. To walk you through the lineup of M3s, starting from the beginning, we have the E30. This is a 190 horsepower, 2.3 four-cylinder. It weighs 2,600 pounds, and it was only available in 5-speed manual. Then we move on to the E36 M3. This was a 240 horsepower inline 6. It weighed in at just about 3,200 pounds, and it was the first M3 to be offered in a sedan and had an optional automatic transmission. From there, we get into the E46 M3, and we're back to only being offered in a coupe. No longer is a sedan available. It has a 333 horsepower inline 6 that's naturally aspirated. It came with a 6-speed manual or the introduction of a single clutch automated manual called SMG. Then we move on to the E90, E92 generation. This had a 400 horsepower NA V8 and weighed in right about 3,500 pounds. We got the sedan back in the lineup, and it came with a 6-speed manual or an optional 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Then we have the F80 F82 lineup. This had a 420 horsepower inline 6 twin turbo. It came right in around 3,700 pounds, was offered in a sedan and a coupe with a 6-speed or the 7-speed DCT transmission. Last but not least, we have the G80, a 475 horsepower twin turbo inline 6. Tipping the scales at 4,000 pounds, it is now available for the first time ever with all-wheel drive, a rear-wheel drive option, manual, or a torque converter automatic. Started off with the E30 M3. This is the homologation car. This is the car that they had to make to go racing. It's the reason for some of the things we love the most about it, like the wide body, crazy aero kit, the engine, all the things about it. The E30 M3 was born to be a legend. And that's the only way it could have shaken out. Under the hood is a smaller engine that came in the base model 3 Series. The 328 was equipped with an M20 inline 6. This is an S14, and it's a 4-cylinder, a 2.3 liter that pumps out 190 horsepower. And that was again to fit into Group A restrictions. It's a motor that was actually repurposed from a race car and had a turbocharger removed from it and repurposed for the street. It's got individual throttle bodies. It's got a high red line. It was a special engine to start what was going to be a massive lineage of some of the most recognizable and iconic cars ever. Man, what do you even say about driving an E30 M3? It's a legend. It's so cool. I love E30 interiors. It is the perfect classic car feel. It's sporty, it's chill. It's just such a good car. But on roads like this and in this situation and comparing it to these other cars, it's definitely bringing a spoon to a knife fight. It's got 190 horsepower. It doesn't sound that special, and it's not that fast. And on a grid, boring road like this, it's not where it shines. The E30 M3 is a car that will shine on track. If you momentum drive this thing and you drive it high in the RPMs, it will be rewarding. But stoplight to stoplight, kind of a snooze. It goes without saying that I think the E30 M3 is an amazing car. I suspect that if this car didn't jump in value tremendously, people wouldn't give it such a hard time for its performance. When these cars were cheap, they were awesome. They were cool looking cars that were pretty fun to drive. When they were touching $100,000, that's when you start saying, why? I'm hard pressed to talk crap on it. I think it's a really awesome car. I think it's super fun. I think compared to the more modern stuff, you're gonna be hard up to find any car from the late 80s that could hang with a car from the 2000s, especially when we're not talking about things like an F40 or something that costs millions of dollars. But remember, that S14 engine is derived from a race engine. So when those things go bad, they're super expensive to rebuild. And I just gotta say, when I first got the E30 M3, I wasn't overly impressed with it, and I didn't instantly fall in love. The more I drive this car, the more I start to really enjoy the charm of the E30 M3. So, I don't know, I think that means I gotta get rid of it really soon because I don't really have room for more cars. After the huge success of the E30 M3, BMW sort of let us down with the E36. It's as if this big brand saw this immense demand for this cool thing that they made, and then they pulled out all the cool stuff for profit. Maybe I'm a little cynical and a little sour because I went through something like that, but I love the E36, and I have owned 5 of them, maybe more. But I'm allowed to be mad at it, and here's why. No more bespoke body kit or wider fenders. Instead, what we got is bumpers, a side skirt. The M3 taillights that we know and love actually didn't come on a 95, so these are amber, just like the base E36. And this wing here that looks super special, this is actually off of the lightweight cars. This is not a factory option for any M3 otherwise. And these iconic mirrors. This shares so many of the characteristics of the base 3 Series. It is almost identical to the naked eye, and some of the sport model 3 Series actually had this body kit available. So it sort of feels a lot less special than the M3 already. Mechanically, it's a bit of a disappointment too. In Europe, they got the S50 B32, which was an inline 6-cylinder that still had individual throttle bodies. But here in America, we got the vanilla scoop of engines. The S50 and S52 are just fine. 240 horsepower from an inline 6 with just one lonely little throttle body. Along with a 7,000 RPM rev limiter and 240 horsepower, it's just fine. And the chassis did get some upgrades from the base car. It's got bigger brakes front and rear, a larger differential with a limited slip inside of it, and some different chassis bracing and aluminum control arms. But overall, it's a pretty reserved M3. And inside is a lot like the E30 in that it feels a lot like the factory car, but it does have one thing that is iconic to the M3 and maybe one of the most notable seats of all time, the Vader. These were super cool and honestly still remain to be something that people look back and revere for the E36. It's shaped weird. It's got a headrest that goes all the way down to here that I don't know how to move up. It was something really unique. These, the taillights and the mirrors are pretty much what make the E36 the most recognizable. So let's get it on the road, see what it's like. And I know it's a little harsh on the E36 in there, but honestly, it's the greatest entry-level M3 you can get. The first thing you notice about the E36 is the cockpit is the perfect size. It's a great blend between classic and modern. It kind of is that everything you need, nothing you don't feel. BMW took away a lot of what made the M3 an M3, but it doesn't mean it wasn't a good car. The S50 and S52 engine is a lot more robust, a lot more reliable than both its predecessor, the S14, and its successor, the S54, but more about that later. And 240 horsepower feels great. This car is a super drivable, very comfortable, perfect size car. And if you're looking to get into the world of M3s, this is a great way in. The chassis are phenomenal. You could do tons of upgrades to these. They make incredible track cars, great canyon cars, and just good everyday cruisers. I think if you're not concerned with having the fastest or the most special M3 and you just want something that looks cool, drives great, has plenty of aftermarket, and could get literally everything done, the E36 is a perfect fit. Now onto the car that I've owned the longest out of all of the M3s, the E46. This is BMW's apology for the E36. It debuted in 2000, and guess who's back? Wider fenders, a cool hood with a bubble in it, 4 exhaust tips, individual throttle bodies, and a high revving engine. And because it's a BMW, things like the hood shocks still just go bad. All was right in the cosmos. We were back. This thing in 2000 made 333 horsepower out of a 3.2 liter. It was a new industry standard. Over 100 horsepower per liter out of a naturally aspirated inline 6. The S54 was godlike. And those are North American specs. You know the Euro cars made more power, and then there's a limited edition CSL that made even more power. This thing is spicy. It is the M3 package, but it's arguably the worst M3 ever made, like physically put together. Let me explain. The chassis is the funniest part, and by funny, I mean like painful. For starters, the subframe cracks, and I'm not talking about the subframe. I'm talking about where the subframe bolts to. The chassis of the car actually cracks. But there's a somewhat simple solution back there. And for a couple $1,000, a shop will pull your whole subframe, differential, brakes, all the arms out of the back of the car and weld reinforcement plates in. But we're not done. There's something called an RACP. And I don't know what the acronym is, but it pretty much stands for entire rear of the car. Rips off the rest of the car. The part under the seat separates, the chassis separates from itself. And it is a absolutely massive job to fix. What happened? Like, I'm happy BMW put wider fenders on it again. Like, these are lovely. But what happened literally in between is uncalled for. Now, onto the engine issues. As I mentioned before, the S54 is spicy. And that level of spice doesn't come without some agita. First off, it's got rod bearing problems. They were clearance too tight from the factory and had a bunch of engine failures. But BMW caught it and actually started replacing them under warranty in the early thousands. After that, the Vanos also becomes a problem. It's got 2 little tabs on it that clip into the hub and spin, and those like to break off. And then those pieces end up in your oil pan, and that's how your engine blows up. And then the last one is just something that comes with having a solid lifter engine, which is that it needs frequent valve adjustments. About every 30,000 miles, you're gonna have to adjust your valve lash. Something that kind of comes with the territory of a race engine, but for a street car that racks on miles, that happens a lot because this isn't an exotic car. This is a sports car for the everyman. So the E46 is a sports car with a supercar maintenance plan. I love it. And once you get it dialed, they're pretty reliable. But this one's got a transmission I've never driven before, so let's get it out on the road. All right, guys, we're driving an E46 M3 with an SMG gearbox. And I specifically set out to find an SMG car because I think this was a big complaint for a lot of M enthusiasts when the car came out. But luckily, my friend David has this absolutely beautiful example of an M3, and he kept it SMG. Because remember, this was the era when Ferrari also made a single clutch automated manual, and that's what this is. This is basically the exact transmission as the 6-speed, but it's shifted manually with a single clutch, and that's why it has that lag. It has that quirk where if you want to match rev downshift, you have to hit it, blip it, and then downshift it. You have to sort of drive it like a manual, even though it can shift itself automatically. I think this was something that kind of sucked when it came out. But now, there's a little bit of nostalgia to it, and honestly, it's kind of fun. And it is a little clunky to get used to, and I think it feels a bit bizarre, but other than that, especially with bucket seats, the E46 M3 fits like a glove. I do think that BMW constantly got it wrong when it came to the factory seats in the M3 because they sat a little bit too high. So ergonomically, right now, this car is perfection. I think the S54 is just like many other of the M cars. You really have to like string it out to get the emotion out of it. They're low torque, high horsepower. That doesn't always equate to feeling that fast on the street. But when you're really in it, it's quick. And the E46 M3 was one of the generations that got a lot of really bad feedback for how it sounded, which they fixed for a generation and then went back to one of the worst sounding cars ever. But I think with the right mods, you could really make the S54 sound incredible. Carbon airbox and a pretty quiet exhaust with some resonators. These things actually sound pretty cool. And now we move on to the last ever naturally aspirated BMW M3. But to purists, this thing was pure blasphemy because for the first time ever, under the hood was a V8. But BMW did stick with it. Following in the footsteps of the E46, we still got a cool cowl hood, wider fenders. But for the first time ever, a carbon fiber roof on an M3 as an option. Yes, the CSL E46 had it, but it wasn't optional on the regular E46. They also did away with the SMG gearbox and gave us two gearbox options, a 6-speed manual and also a dual clutch transmission, which was a huge upgrade from the SMG. The S65 is a 4-liter V8 with 8 throttle bodies and a red line of 8,600 RPM. It produced 400 horsepower and it is a glorious engine. These are pretty damn robust too. They have two problems, one of them being rod bearings, which is a pretty simple job that you could bring to any BMW shop and expect to pay anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 and then never worry about it again. The other one is throttle actuators, which is a job that you could do yourself for under $1,000 in your own driveway. And these things are super stout, and that's why I love them so much. These cars did get a bit heavier. As you saw in a previous episode, this car started at over 3,500 pounds. We knocked it down to right at the 3,300 pound mark. Its size also accommodates for absolutely massive wheels and tires. We're running a 295/30 front and rear. Even though we got a little bit more weight, we also got a bunch more tire that we could fit under there. Let's get it out on the road. All right, let the E92 glazing begin. For the first time ever, an M3 undoubtedly sounded awesome. Coming off of the E46 that sounded like a swarm of bees, we now have an insane 4-liter V8. That sounds like that. But you know what's not incredible? It's just kind of the interior on the E92. Much like the E46, it's just kind of like fine. It's a good interior with not much going on. But I think if you step back and look at this car of its era and how it's aging, it's like the interior itself is okay, but it's the things that have technology that you want to get rid of. And it's why I think all these newer cars are going to age really poorly. God, this thing is so good. But the E92 is a great base for a street and track car, dual purpose club sport build, because even with the roll bar, bucket seats, and a kind of loud exhaust, I mean, this thing cruises super nice. no auto blip, no nonsense, just a good driver's car. So if I had to complain about the E92, there's one thing. It's pretty bad on gas. I mean, a 4-liter V8 I thought would be okay, but I guess because it doesn't make a lot of torque, you're always kind of in the throttle and you want to hear it. So this thing kind of chows through gas. So there you go. The F80 M3, also known as the beginning to the end, but I think is the most beautiful M3 ever made. It's the perfect blend of classy and sporty. Because in the F80, although it is getting bigger, it's getting more modern, BMW is still sticking true to the M3 roots. They learned from that E36 mistake. Carbon fiber roof, special hood with a cool cowl, wider fenders front and rear, and a bespoke body kit, so we're still getting what feels like the M3. It's also the highest performance M3 at the time, but it's sort of when BMW started to slip and they traded out speed for fun, which reminds me, we made these keychains for driver's error because speed ain't without feeling, because we love cars with emotion more than just outright speed. Those two are not super connected. And the F80 M3 was the first M3 to ever come turbocharged. The S55 is a twin-turbo 3-liter inline-6, and it is a powerhouse. This engine is super robust and could make a ton of power with bolt-on modifications. But where it shines is also where it lacks. I think the S55 is a super soulless engine. I don't care what you say about how much power they could make. This doesn't speak to anyone. And the factory cold start is one of the worst sounding things I've ever heard in my entire life.
People hate the F80.
It's rough. And it seems like every sports car has its one Achilles heel. And this one has two problems. One of them, really easy. Factory intercoolers tend to fail, but those are a simple upgrade. The other one is they have a crank hub that controls the timing, which can spin on the crank, blowing up your motor. But that's about a $1,500 to $2,500 fix. And if you get that out of the way, these things are damn reliable. I hated this car. I never wanted one. And then I got a good deal on one and it quickly became my favorite daily ever. I still want another one. So let's get inside it and I'll talk to you about the driving experience. The F80, great seats. Some of the best, maybe the best seats that were ever offered in a factory M3. Big boy headroom, nice bolstering. They look cool, they light up. It's awesome. Interior ergonomics just feel better for a daily driver car. This car is an absolute joy to be in. It drives amazing. It's super comfortable. It's just a great car. Something about it that feels really uninspiring. When I owned mine, I never wanted to take it to the track. I never wanted to take it to the mountains. It was just an amazing car that I felt good pulling up anywhere in. It was fun to drive on the road. It was fast. It handled well. It looked cool. Just something about it. Doesn't feel like it has that same M emotion. This is also the first generation M3 that I think the dual clutch transmission is the better option. And I know there's a lot of debate in the E90 and E92 world that the DCT is better than the manual, but I think like the point is moot. They're both fine. But in this car, I actually think the dual clutch fits it better. The manual feels a little soft, it feels a little rubbery. It doesn't really feel that engaging. So I think the dual clutch is the better option. It is, however, a bit clunky that when you're in stop and go traffic, it isn't a torque converter automatic. It still kind of slaps around a little bit. So where do we leave off with the F80? It's really fast and it's a really great car. They don't sound that good, but they're super comfortable. They're great to be in. If you could get over that it sounds like a lawnmower, it's a pretty amazing car. Last but not least, the G series, the absolutely huge G80, G82. And yes, this is not an M3, it's technically an M4, but what are you gonna do? They're mostly the same, this one's two-door. But before we talk any bad about the G80, let's count our blessings here, because what did BMW give us? They gave us a car that still came with a carbon fiber roof. It still has wider bodywork, both front and rear, with the bespoke body kit attached to it. So even with all of the bad, we still gotta be stoked. It's a cool car, and it still has the overall ethos of what made an M3 an M3. It just got fatter like some of us. This is a car that I think is a huge turning point for the M3 because nowadays, sports cars need to be so fast. And one of the only brands that's staying true to the original format of their engine and sort of the horsepower figure is actually two. One, on the low end, the Subaru STI still has a 2.5 liter that makes 300 horsepower, the same as like 2004. And Porsche with the GT3, still doing a flat 6, making modest power. But BMW is still stepping it up, and the S58 in this car is capable of producing huge horsepower numbers. We often see these cars deep in the 9-second drag racing times. 9 seconds in an M3 is not something I ever would have thought because they were never made to be drag cars. But these things are super fast. This one, obviously in time attack trim, they're super capable, but they're also super heavy, super numb. And if you talk to anyone who owns these cars, they're great cars. They're just not that fun. And what I mean by that is you lose a lot of the sensation that gives you that feeling of driving. And the reason why I want to jump inside the car is because I think that this is where this car shines, because it is a very nice car. See, what's going on nowadays is you have all these Korean auto manufacturers pumping out high quality luxury cars for cheap. So BMW isn't allowed to have a kind of crummy interior in a nice sports car. They had to step it up a lot. And inside, it shows. Carbon bucket seats, carbon trim everywhere, lots of screens, lots of technology make this a car that is great to be inside. And I think that's why people really like the G80s, because if you're buying a new car, you kind of just want a nice car. So for the first time ever, let's get this thing out on the road. Wow, this thing's got some spicy mods on it. It also has a T51R mod, so the turbo sounds really cool. This thing sounds like it has like a sonic boom when you shift. The G80 is a hard car to dislike because, especially while cruising it around on the street, you're like, this thing is super comfortable. It's fun to drive. It sounds better than an F80. And like BMW just really did a great job with the interior and stuff. I personally am sort of over screens. I prefer clusters. Bring back the days of a good old gauge cluster. It's crazy fast. It's hard to say that new cars aren't fun. They lack a little bit of that connectivity that I think makes the slower cars more fun. But the G80 is great. I mean, the carbon bucket seats are really great. In a previous episode, we took a G82 M3 out on the canyons, and that's where my complaints start to really come through, is that the car's too fast with minimal feedback for those types of situations. Right now is where the G80 is going to shine. Where I live and where the shop is horrible grid streets with red lights every 50 feet. It's the worst place in the world to drive. That's where the G80 is the greatest of the M3s to drive because it's fast, it's still comfortable, it gives you some feedback, but when you take it out in the canyons or on the track is when you start to realize it's got more speed than it does feedback. So it's kind of hard to drive the car slow and have fun. That's my only gripe with the G80. But for now, well, there you have it. It's every generation of BMW M3. And now, if you've watched our Worth It show before, we've got a system on how to rank these things. So let's get back to the shop, put some numbers behind the bullshit. We got 5 categories on how to judge a car. The first one is cool. So we're talking about how cool is it when you show up to a car meet or a track day. The second one is price. How much car do you get in today's market value? The third one is fun. How exciting is a car to drive? Do you think about it when you're not driving it? The fourth one is practical. Is it a good car at just being a car? And the last one is something that I hate, but it is something to consider. It's called investment. And I say never to invest in cars. But how safe is your money in buying these things? Are they at their peak? Are they dropping in price? How do you do with that? If I had to go off emotions, it would be 92, 30, 46, F80, E36 G80. Let's see if that matches up to actual scores. First up, we got the E30 M3. For cool, I'm giving it an 8.5. This thing is super sick. Anytime you pull up anywhere, whether they're BMW people or not, it draws a crowd. People instantly know that car is special. Price, I'm giving it a 6. These things were $10,000 cars, then they grew an extra zero, and now they're back down. They're not down to pre-COVID prices. It's never happening ever again, but they did come down quite a bit in price. So that's where we landed. Fun, I'm giving it a 5. Because in the mountains, it is a really good time, and I know on track it would be really fun too, but light to light on the street, it's a little underwhelming. I know it's old, so can't compete with this, but I just think it lacks a bit of excitement on the street. Practical, I'm giving it a 6. There's nothing about it that means you couldn't drive it, except for the fact that it's a kind of special older car that's rare and a bit expensive. Investment, I'm giving it a 6 as well, because I think it's sort of hit its plateau. They had their spike. They're back down to right where they'll settle. We'll get a little bit of waviness in the prices, but overall, I think if you bought one for current market, you're probably pretty safe in the long term. Moving on to the E36. For the first one on cool, I'm giving it a 4. Not because it's a bad car, because the baseline is already cool, but you pull up to a track day or a car meet in an E36, it's just like a good car. No one's going crazy over it, at least it's like a stock one. Price, I'm giving it a 6. It's an $8,000 experience, but it's still a good car for the current market price of like $20,000. It's really hard to beat that experience for that price, but somewhere in my brain, it's just forever like an $8,000 car. For fun, I'm giving it a 5. They're good cars, and honestly, it's a great setup. And with little bolt-on modifications, they're really good. Solid 5. Practical, I'm giving it a 7. Completely normal cars that actually work pretty good. They don't have a ton of inherent issues, except for like that your door panels are gonna fall off and your windows aren't gonna work, and then your door handle's probably not gonna work. The more I talk, I wanna knock it down in points, but I already settled on a 7. Investment, I'm giving it a 5. They made 44,000 E36 M3s in the United States. That's a lot of cars. It's kind of the least special of the early M3s. Good examples will go up, bad examples will keep existing. Drift kids are gonna destroy them, track kids are gonna destroy them, so maybe they'll become a little bit more rare, but that's where we landed. Then we move on to the E46 M3. For cool, we're bumping it up a point to 5. E46, cool car, but it's still kind of at that point where it's like too new to be a classic, but too old to be new and interesting, so that's where we land. Price, I'm giving it a 7 because these are like incrementally more expensive than an E36, but you get a lot more car. I'm a big fan of the E46 M3, right around that like $25,000 price point. That's a hell of a lot of car. Fun, I'm giving it a 6.5. An 8,400 RPM rev limiter. It's got great sounds that it makes. The steering's awesome. The car is just great. For practical, I'm giving it also a 6. It's a totally usable car, but it is a bit high maintenance, so you gotta be prepared to jump into some pretty expensive wear items there. So I'm giving it a 6. For investment, I'm giving it a 5. They made a lot of these. They're not quite that old yet. There's still a lot of good ones out there. I think really nice examples hold their value while other ones go to. Then we move on to the E92. For cool, we're still giving it a 5 because this is the perfect example of it is a 2008 to 2013 car. So you see it and it's a beautiful car, but it's not a classic and it's not modern. So a lot of people who don't get why this car is so special may just sort of breeze over it. So it's getting a 5. For price, I'm giving this a 7. These are barely more expensive than an E46 M3, and most of them are a lot easier to get sorted and have a good, reliable car. So it's getting a 7. Fun, I'm giving it a 6.5 because this car rules. And in stock trim, it could use a little livening up, but once you add a couple parts, as you've seen on this one, this thing is a riot. For practical, I'm giving it an 8 because this thing is super robust. I actually had one as a daily driver and it was great. One big downside to it is that it gets horrible gas money. And for investment, I'm gonna give it a 6 because I think that they are a good price right now. I don't see them going down. These came up a bit in price over the last couple of years. They sort of settled out. I got a great deal on this car, but a stock E90 M3 with around 100,000 miles, it's like 27 to 35 grand. And that's a lot of car for the money. Then we move on to the F80. Whew, we're getting through them, folks. The F80 is getting a 5. It's a cool car, but honestly, most people just know how terrible they sound and don't really like them. And no one's gonna ooh and ah at F80 at a meet, but it is a great car and it looks beautiful. Price, I'm giving it a 7.5 because you enter the daily driver territory there. The F80 is an incredible daily driver sports car, so it's getting a 7.5. Fun, I'm giving it a 5.5. It takes a slight hit from the E92 because it's not as emotionally connected, but it's super fast. I don't know, I enjoy driving it a ton. Practical, it's getting a 9. The thing Rules. Only downside is how bad it sounds. And for investment, I'm giving it a 5, just because, again, they made a lot of them, and I just don't think that the F80 has that fandemonium attached to it that they're going to go up in value. I think it's just kind of gonna stay at a certain price. It'll probably bottom out like we've seen in the E46 and the 92, and they'll just chill there for a bit. And then last but not least, we move on to the G80 or G82 as we had. For cool, it's getting a 5, because it's, oh wow, a new M3. For price, I'm giving it a 6. Again, you get an amazing daily driver with a ton of horsepower, a lot of aftermarket support in a very good looking packaged car, despite its ugly grills, but honestly, I've kind of gotten over it. Have you? And then investment, I'm gonna give it a 3 because it's a new car and they're expensive and they're only gonna go down for many years. They'll probably plateau, but I think the G80 still has a lot of downside. So if you're buying one, it's just gonna take a new depreciation hit. So let's see how we wrapped up. Did my emotional score land? I don't know because my brain doesn't work that well, so I already forgot. So let me look at my iPad. All right, well, I was kind of close. E92 is still in first place at a 32.5. Second place was not the E30, it was the F80 at a 32, the E30 at a 31.5, and then we have a two-way tie at a 28 for the E46 and the G80. And then in last place, sorry E36 folks, but you got a 27, it's the last place car. But anyways, that's it. This was a really fun episode for me. At the end of it, I was like, damn, this is really cool. We got to actually drive every M3 ever made in one day. And I appreciate all of you guys for watching, especially those of you guys who are subscribed and watch every week. I know you're out there. Thank you so much. If you're not, hit that subscribe button. We'll be back next week. Thanks so much. We're gonna go look at M3s.
I am Gustavo. I'm just the detailer. They told me that I had to clean this car and promised me tacos. So far, there's no tacos, and here I am driving this car. I didn't even got an interviewer. It's not tacos, but that will do.